What is up, YouTube? Chris here, and I've got a very special Sunday Slaughter battle report for you guys out there. We have the top table at US Nationals at Family Time Games. This was a tournament that happened about a month ago, but I was finally able to wrangle Cyrus and Brett. So, how's it going, guys?
Oh, going pretty good. Greetings, Sunday Slaughter faithful.
What's up, Brett?
Oh, hey everybody. Yeah, it's going really well. I'm definitely ready to cover this match because I think it was a really interesting and good battle, and I think it ended up being a lot closer than what some people might have expected.
Well, before we get into the match, let's go over each of your lists and maybe you can briefly talk about why you brought this list, any tech pieces that were considered when building the list. So let's start with Cyrus here.
All right, so I brought Roose and Lannisters, and ever since the Visions in the Flame started revealing stuff, and I saw Roose, I figured he is the best Lannister commander, and he's not even a Lannister commander. And his control elements, when I was looking at him, really work against Night's Watch. And because Nationals didn't have anything that was banned, I had a feeling that we were going to see some Night's Watch. So I specifically built this list as an overall Night's Watch counter, mostly against the double crossbows with watch captains and double conscripts. So I have Roose and a unit of guardsmen, another unit of guardsmen that has no attachment, and then two cavalry units, Flayed Men and Knights of Casterly Rock. And those guys are the units that go out and try to get to those ranged units before they can do too much damage. I also brought Tywin, who is devastating to certain Night's Watch units that have to rely on their additional abilities to get their damage done. He can shut them down, and he can do some damage to conscripts as well. Brought Pycelle to throw out extra tokens because Roose's cards really need additional tokens, and then Peter because he's just really good in a lot of lists and very versatile. So that was my mindset going into the game, is I want to control a lot of what a lot of armies, including Night's Watch, like to do. And I anticipated seeing either one unit of crossbows with a watch captain and 3 infantry units, or 2 units of crossbows with 2 other infantry units. But instead, here at this game, I see Brett has brought a little bit of a curveball, and it really worked into his favor. So Brett anticipated a counter to the counter, and I'll let him talk about that.
Sure, Brett, if you want to go over your list here.
Sure. So essentially, I'm a little bit of a cheese ball, but excuse me. Obviously, having some knowledge by following, competitive games, speaking with Bob and you guys in the group. I mean, I think it's pretty much common knowledge. Everybody knew that Othel with crossbows was a really strong build. Bob and I were always playing double crossbows, but I think to some extent the meta has sort of figured that list out. There's definitely ways to beat it. I didn't anticipate playing something like Cyrus brought. I anticipated having to deal with a lot of Dothraki because I know that Craig and I had spoken, and he's running this 5 Dothraki list, and it's like, yeah, and I can see how that could be really effective. You get the crossbows to commit to facing one threat, and then you either shoot them in the flank with the other, or you just flank charge them with the other, or they just lap around and kill the conscripts. So I wanted to add a different tech piece just to kind of, like Cyrus said, throw a curveball into the meta because everybody's expecting double crossbows. And I figured Flademen are really popular. They're really good. They're really strong. They work in just about every army. So some of the synergies I saw with bringing Flademen would be the ability to intercept their heavy cav, or at least to threaten their light cav if they try to post the Dothraki up on a flank. They're not really safe because the Flademen can go charge them and do some serious damage. But in addition to that, I really liked the the synergy it has with serrated enhancement, because intimidating presence will work to make that a -3, an additional wound, and you're much more likely to weaken them with that additional -1. So I was like, I want to run the Flayedman. Generally, I run 3 conscripts with my author list, but since I had the 2 points, since Flayedmen are only 8, and the crossbowmen are generally 10, that freed up an extra 2 points. So I had 6 points there. I would have loved that to be a unit of ranger trackers, but obviously they're not 6 points anymore. So I thought Corrin Halfhand would be a nice addition, because he can add, now that he can influence cavalry, he can make those Flayedmen movement 6 and give them 8 attack dice. And that alone to me was enticing enough to give it a try, because it increases the threat range of those Flayedmen so much, and there's not a lot of things in the game that can give Flayedmen movement 6. So I wanted to give that a go, and it just so happened to work out at this event, but I was not anticipating this type of list.
Well, personally, as both of you know already, I've seen the match because obviously I've had to edit the video. But I encourage anyone who's watching this match, please stick it out to the very end. It is a phenomenal match. I'm also excited that both of you are still able to show some creativity when there are those that think that each of these factions have sort of been figured out already. You know, we're seeing Tywin NCU, we're seeing Knights of Casterly Rock on the table, we're seeing Flayed Men and Night's Watch. It's really unique to see these two armies pitted against each other, and it's going to be an awesome match. Actually, before we get right into it, what game mode are you guys playing at Final Table?
This was Winds of Winter, I believe.
Yep, it was Winds of Winter. No offense, Cyrus, I'm sure this still hurts you, but it was very fortunate for me that it wasn't Dark Wings, Dark Words, because if you'll see it as we get into it, but had it been a scenario that just innately scored off of missions or innately scored off of objectives, I think it's 100% that I lose this game.
Yeah, I got myself crossed up here. If you look at deployment, I have Roos at the bottom of the screen going for that objective token, and he's kind of out of consideration being over here all by himself, and he doesn't get into the game, spoiler alert, until later in the game. But uh, so I did that to myself because there's no native scoring on objective tokens, so it really didn't make a whole lot of sense for me to put him there. So that was my own bit of a brain fart there, but it ended up not being the worst thing in the world, as we'll discuss later as the game gets going.
All right, so we have the match started here, and I believe Brett won the dice off, but he opted to let Cyrus go first. For those who don't know, this game mode is the secret mission game mode where you draft from the secret mission deck. So each player gets mission 11 and 12, which is control the center objective, and um, if your opponent has more points than you, then you can take first player and you get a point. So at the beginning of round 2, each player will put out one of their drafted missions, and then you will be scoring from those 2 active missions throughout the round. They're discarded at the end of the round, and then you pick your next drafted mission. So here, game begins. We see the handshake, and I believe Cyrus is going to take the board first.
Yep. So I choose Peter to go on the bags, but utilize the letters. And the primary motive behind that is to just simply get a token out on one of his units. Playing into Night's Watch, I don't mind if he draws some cards with the letters because he's got Jor. He's going to get those cards anyway. I just want tokens out for a Flayed Man Has No Secrets. So I want everything to have at least one token on it. So that's why I play Peter that way.
Yeah, that's nasty. A Flayed Man Has No Secrets is a card that everyone should fear and respect.
It's
So
it,
versatile as long as you have the token out there.
it's a really good card, and this is where Baelish comes in as not just a strong NCU for everybody anyway. I firmly believe that Peter is actually the best counter to this type of Othel list, because often you find that you're not bringing a ranged unit, or at least not a ranged unit that wants to be, in range of their crossbows. So being able to put Peter Baelish on the sword in the later rounds and stop them from taking the bag and using the swords is a big play. And then obviously being able to take the bags away from the Night's Watch player and utilize a different zone is a really good play. So it kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. I knew Peter was in his list, but I wasn't sure exactly which zone to go for. But it looks like I popped Corn down onto the letters, and I threw a weaken down, I'm sure, on his flayed men, and I put Corn on the crossbows, I believe.
And we see Cyrus. He plays Lannister, pays his debts on the Knights of Castle Rock there, and then Pycelle going on the Crown, and then trying to zap the conscripts, and we see a pass on a 10. Cyrus is a little confused because Brett uses D6 for his panic dice, but
I just thought he grabbed the wrong one,
there.
but yeah, it made sense.
Yep, I've very superstitious dice juju. I've had traditionally the D3 does me pretty dirty. I used to play the mounted behemoth a lot in Lannisters, and it seemed like the D3 always popped up a 1 when I was attacking, but a 3 when I did panic. So I just dumped all D3s altogether. It's just weird Brett superstitious crap.
There I intrigued and subterfuge Jor just to slow him down a little bit, tried to keep him from going into his deck and getting the cards that he really wants. I was really fortunate in my opening hand that I drew 3 cards that I could use in round 1. I had Lannister pays his debts, Intrigue, and then here I'm going to take the swords and actually be able to still use it by playing Bribery here and putting him on the flayed men.
So nasty.
Yeah, it's a really good opening hand. And additionally, because you put Peter to the money bags, when you played Intrigue, you were able to put another weakened token. So now I've got 2 weakened tokens out, and my flayed men are knocked down to 4 attacks.
I believe you should have 3 weakened tokens, actually, because Cyrus
Pycelle,
has the bags from Intrigue. So.
Yep. Really, really good.
All right, so now we see the first activation on the board. Cyrus opts to march up Tywin onto the token. I don't know if at this point, Cyrus, you remembered if he gets points or not.
I remembered at this point, and that's why I was okay with activating him first, because he's kind of out of it at this point. I had the mission in my hand to score points from being on objective tokens, but I don't think I played it.
And just a correction, when I was talking about the game modes, it's each player gets mission 11 and 12, and I believe it's mission 11. It's not control the center objective. It's actually score for each objective you control. So I feel like I need to clarify that.
Right.
Okay. Here.
Oh.
Go ahead, Brett.
Go ahead, Brett.
No, I was just saying I had these knights coming over and starting to threaten these conscripts. So I'm trying to bunch my units together a little bit more because I know that they've fallen out of favor with a lot of Lannister players, but particularly after our match, I have begun to love Knights of Castle Rock again. I mean, they still hit like a loaded freight train, and they are still really, really scary. So I see these guys circling around my flank, and they're potentially able to one-shot a unit of conscripts. So I'm kind of trying to bunch everybody together there.
So there with my flayed men, after I run the knights away, I move my flayed men up, and I'm counting on this forest to protect me a little bit. But at the very beginning of my activation, I did a little shimmy to the right, trying to make some distance from the flayed men. But that's actually going to come back to bite me here in a minute because I left just a sliver of opening on my right side that his crossbows are going to be able to take advantage of. I should have tried to get more enveloped in that forest.
Yep, and that's the Corrin 12-inch march there. But I think this is here where we're discussing the rules for the forest, and it's one of those things. I like the idea that the developers did with completely blocking line of sight, and it can work. Don't get me wrong, it definitely can work, but under the old rules, they would at least be getting -1 to hit. But under the new rules, if you can just trace a tiny little line at any point to them that's not obstructed by the forest, then you're able to shoot them. So that's me shifting there, and now I've got a line to you, just your little corner there. So felt a little bit cheesy, but That's yeah.
The rules are the rules.
Yep. Unfortunate for the flayed men, but
So it's at this moment when you said, "Oh yeah, I can shoot you here." I'm thinking, "Ah crap, I might be in trouble. These flayed men might uh be taking a bunch of shots from those crossbows." And then you're also going first the next round. So I'm having to think of other alternatives than relying on these flayed men because I think they're toast at this point.
I'm sure
yep.
it was a consideration for you that flayed men into crossbows combined with Tywin put me in a dead unit. So I'm assuming that's why you decided to be a little more aggressive and compete or deploy with your flayed men there to sort of contest with his crossbows.
If I had been more forward thinking, I was also at a disadvantage on deployment because Brett deployed or had me deploy first because I chose side. I would have preferred to have my Knights of Casterly Rock where the flayed men are and have the flayed men going around the flank because if he
Mhm.
shoots the Knights of Casterly Rock, he'll have to take a Lannister supremacy shot back. So if I had this to do over again, I might have swapped those.
Gotcha. And we see it the first attack of the game here, the Expos going into the flayed men, only doing one wound though, which is good for Cyrus. And then with the panic check, I believe you pass. Yeah, you
My
pass.
dice were hot on this game. I was making all sorts of defense saves, which is, you can kind of count on that because it's 3 armor across the board for me. But like in that instance, I was 1 save above average, and that pretty much carried me throughout the vast majority of the game. And here's Brett interposing his flayed men in between my flayed men and his crossbows, which is the absolute perfect play. It puts me in a position where I can't get to him, and he's going to tie up my flayed men and just take pot shots with those crossbows.
Yep.
Yep.
That was exactly the one of the tech pieces for the flayed bin was to just be able to intercept charges from getting to the crossbows, but giving the crossbows the flexibility to still be able to use the watch captain for the maneuver if necessary, but otherwise just be in a spot where they can shift and take these shots. So it's yeah, it's another reason for that tech piece of the flayed men is that they're a little bit more mobile than what you get from Night's Watch infantry, and they're more survivable really than any Night's Watch unit because without attachments you can't get a 3+ defense from a Night's Watch unit.
So what we see here is the power of Baelish in this game mode because we see that both you and Cyrus have put out an objective where taking the swords is going to give your opponent a victory point. But Brett going first this round has Baelish, so he can take the bags, getting the buffs from any awful cards that could be attached. I don't know if there's any attached right now, but yeah, and not having to forfeit a victory point. So we're seeing another attack with the crossbows into the flayed men here.
Yep. And in addition to getting the buffs from Othel, taking the bags is a really good play because obviously you can stop them from healing up whatever damage you've done to them. As you see there, the shot did just 3 wounds. So if he's got the ability to take the money bags himself, then he can essentially just waste that activation that I made by counterbalancing it with the money bags. That's the benefit of Cyrus having an army that's basically all 3+ defense. He should be, saving half of whatever hits I put in with the crossbows.
And Cyrus, you used Peter's one-time ability to say that you had the crowns here. What was your idea behind that? I'm sure you have something in your hand that's that caused you to do
Yeah,
that.
I think I had a fealty and a uh, counterplot. So I was thinking, well, I have 2 possibilities of really needing the crown here, and I wasn't going to take the crown to uh, to try to do a panic test here. So I decided to just say that I had the crown and then proceed forward. Maybe hoping that his flayed men would fail a panic test here and I could heal back up with a fealty. So that was my thinking with just saying that I had it for this round.
And
Gotcha.
it's a really good play. That fealty is not only is it one of Lannister's better cards and one of the better healing cards in the game, it's like a deflator for the opponent. And I think we've talked a lot about some of the psychology of this game, but getting your opponent to be frustrated or otherwise just kind of get tilted is a really good way to take over the psychology of the game. And if he had healed 4, in addition to whatever damage he had done here, it would have been pretty frustrating for me. It's such a big swing.
Well, that weaken token really comes in handy because Cyrus rolled four sixes, so that was 4 crits, and Brett opted to just weaken the sixes, so bringing the 12 hits originally down to just 5 hits, which was a pretty smart play by Brett.
That was one of those moments where the cartoon comes up and says, "Hey, you forgot something." Yeah, we forgot to remove bribery from the flayed men here.
Yep. Yeah, bribery stays on these flayed men for I'd say at least half of the game before Brett realizes that it should have came off at that moment.
And then after that, I re-bribed them again.
Yeah, because I think once I start taking shots into them and they're passing panic, it might have even been Cyrus that reminded me. But that I'm sure that moment's coming up when I start shooting into that combat. But I had a lot of chances to get that card removed, and a little bit of a spaced. Pretty nervous.
This is another moment where I regret my cavalry placement. If I had had the knights over there with their sundering, they might have done a lot more damage to those flayed men, but I only got 1 hit through with flayed men on flayed men, so I really missed having that sundering.
And that's what happens when you charge flayed men that are standing in a forest is they become a +1 defense. So saving on 2s, they're a tank at that point.
Yep, that's another point that's worth mentioning here for anybody watching the game. Simon actually made the choice and had us use 6 pieces of terrain, minus Feast for Crows and Honed and Ready. So you're seeing a lot of terrain on the board. So it gave both of us the opportunity to really take advantage of the terrain. And for me, I really enjoyed it. I'd be interested to hear what you thought about the 6 pieces of terrain. I really quite liked it. It made terrain a very, very, very important part of every game.
I liked it as well. It did make it very, very busy out on the field. And then when you do play games and you're using random terrain and you roll just 3 pieces, it seems very bare and kind of boring. So having all of this stuff out there and having those things to think about, it was very nice.
All right, so just backing up a little bit, Cyrus, you and Brett discussed that the guardsmen were in the front. That's why you opted to just march them up and face the conscripts there and not charge the flank because they were actually in the front arc.
Yeah, if those missions hadn't have been out and giving up 2 victory points for taking the swords, I might have attacked again with the flayed men and moved over to create some space. But 1, the guardsmen aren't that good in attack, especially in the front, and 2, that leaves me again wide open to another shot from the crossbows. So I opted to just go ahead and march those guardsmen up and threaten the flank of the flayed men and also those crossbows.
And we're seeing an attack here from Brett's flayed men. I believe it was only 4 dice, so it should have been 7, but you saved all of them, Cyrus, so you dodged a bullet there.
Yep, hot dice again. With that, again, the 3 armor comes back. You're likely to save the majority of them, but I ended up saving all of them, which you don't want to take those flayed men panic tests. So I was pretty fortunate there.
We had seen a subjugation came down, so I'm guessing that was another. Excuse me, sorry. I'm guessing that was another reason you wanted to control the crown, was to be able to make the flayedmen a -2 when they took that subjugation.
Yeah, that was another one. But I didn't get the failed panic test for the fealty, and I can't remember if I ended up tossing it after this round to try to draw up, not being able to count on a whole lot of failed panic checks at this point.
Yeah, I think we're measuring to see if the bows can see through the forest with that shift there.
Yeah, one thing I was going to ask Brett is, are you within short range here? Because I think there was a few attacks that I saw that you do throughout this game where you don't re-roll from the crossbows having that ability.
Yeah, I'm sure that they were definitely within short range, but it's just another case. I've got a little bit of the nervous bug. It's my 4th game in the day, and
Understandable.
It was a rough day because I won my first 3 games very, very close, including one with you, Chris, where You were winning at round 5, and we had 3 minutes left
Oh my gosh.
in the round, and it was like, now you got to play round 6, and you're like, oh no, and then I ended up winning in round 6.
Yeah, it was
So
very
yeah,
close.
it was a very very busy day. So yeah, I totally understand Brett being kind of frazzled at this point, because I was too.
So
Yeah,
we see the Watch Captain order come out here. Brett, you are attacking his flayed men. They have honed enhancement on them, so you have that buff card, and we see Cyrus taking 2 wounds here, bringing them down to last rank.
yep. And then I guess the flayed men are taking their panic test here, and I think it was way later in the game before either of us failed a panic test. Spoiler: there's pretty much every panic is a pass here, and I think
Yeah, I
it's
was pretty amazed by that when I was watching this match. I was like, "Holy smokes, is anyone gonna fail these tests here?"
yep,
Yeah, I much prefer having a game where both of our dice are hot than either both of our dice are not, or one is unbalanced to the other. So we were pretty fortunate that not only were my dice hot, but Brett's were as well.
yep. It worked out pretty well in that regard. I felt like the dice minus this one 6 heard round the world that comes up, but other than that, the dice were pretty fair and pretty consistent throughout. Yeah, they were both. Your defensive saves and panic tests were hot, and I think my attack dice and on some occasion the defense dice were pretty nice too. So it worked out pretty well. I think this is what, the third or fourth time the flayed men have been shot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They've been
yeah.
just
So
getting
they're down
peppered.
to the last wound.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I pass.
I think I was begging for a serrated at this point, but I think I had the honed in hand, and I was waiting to use Jayor to go get that serrated, but you intrigued him in the first round,
Hmm.
because I felt serrated was really important in this matchup with your morale being 6 and 7 across the board. Felt like the serrated might have been even a little bit more important than the honed in this matchup.
Yeah,
Now we see
without
Tywin passing here, and
without a
then
lot of modifiers, when you have 3 armor and 6 morale, you're more often than not going to pass those. So you got to get your modifiers out. And I was glad that serrated didn't hit, because they would have been toast earlier.
Yeah, and it's a really, really strong card. But the weakened token kicker on top of that is really just kind of icing on the cake, because it just continues to make it harder for them to get through some of the healing and some of the subtle defense that Night's Watch has. And I'm taking Othel up here and blocking the flank of my crossbows. I'm afraid of the knights coming into the crossbows, and it
This is
almost
the
ends up.
this is the moment where my wheels start turning, because I'm looking at this, and Othel's out there, and I looked at my hand of objective cards, like, I have this one, and this could be really good for me. So I go ahead and get them knights up and stare down Othel.
Yep, and I'm sitting here again. It's again the last game, a little bit of nerves and maybe a little bit of uh, aha moments and forgetfulness. But I'm sitting here, and I pulled them up, and I was like, well, they have hardened, so the knights technically can't one shot them. I can heal them back up with the other knights. I was like, this is fine as a body block here, because then in the following rounds, when hardened really starts to pop off, I should be able to tank these knights somewhat. But yeah, I completely forgot about
Uh,
Tywin.
I,
So
I failed that charge there, because I was going to weaken them down for the next round. There's the panic test for it. So that was an very, very unfortunate one. I was going to go ahead and try to see if I could knock them down a couple ranks and maybe hope for Tywin to finish them off. But
yep, with
that
with
did not work.
with
well,
the
for
hit.
any Lannister fans out there, this is going to be heartbreaking. There's going to be a series of dice rolls that started with that one. That's going to be heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking for me too. I felt so bad. This was such a good and close game, and yeah, his mobility and all of his armor has really got me. Obviously, you can't see my face here, but I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. I'm getting a little bit sweaty, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. He's not failing panic tests, and his armor is so good. We're going into round 3, and I still haven't even killed a unit, and I haven't been taking these supremacy checks. I saw some writing on the wall indicating that this was going to be really, really tough. I had given up on the idea of doing the dirty Night's Watch table. I think even so
So
much so here I give you two victory
2
points
victory
because I'm
points. Yep.
starting to get a little bit desperate because the walls are closing in with all of this heavy cavalry, and I know that the conscripts are not going to hold this flank down very long, if at all. I've got to get rid of this flank so that I can turn the crossbows around and start to face some of these other threats. So that was a 2-point choice for me there.
Now, I understand your logic, Brett, because you know that you have the objective card that allows you to steal first player and gain a victory point. Although you don't play it next round, which I was going to ask you about, because I believe that was maybe what you thought was like, okay, if I can kill this flayed men unit, it'd be 2-1. I can play the card that gives me first player and a point, and then maybe turn the tables a little bit and get the alpha strike on the knights. But you opted to play a different card. You chose to control the center objective.
Yeah, I think I got a little bit selfish. I was looking at the score, and I was thinking once I pop the flayed men, I can send my flayed men to go occupy the guardsmen, and I'll have an easy shot at getting my crossbows on the center, and then I'll be able to start shooting into these knights from the center, and then they're kind of in the middle of the battlefield, and they can get to wherever they need to get to support. But ideally, I was thinking the flayed men could just tank his guardsmen for the rest of the game if I needed to, and then I just have to deal with what's over here. But I also had in mind that I could maybe slowly win the grind game here, but obviously it did not work out. I don't think I ever got to the center, but I was thinking with Relentless, I would be able to break those stakes and get onto the center token. That was the plan.
So
Uh,
here is where Cyrus is going to take over the commentary a little bit. This is a big play here, so let's
Mm.
let's walk through it.
So
Cyrus.
I played the objective. If you destroy the enemy commander, gain 2 points. Now the rest of that objective doesn't matter because my commander hasn't been destroyed. But I pop Tywin here, and I start handing out tokens. And normally, when you're playing Tywin into Night's Watch with crossbows, you want to give his shut off ability to the crossbows, so they lose all their orders and sundering and the relentless and everything. But in this position where I could potentially score 3 points by killing his commander, I give everything to Othel's conscripts. Shuts off hardened, and he's going to get hits with a vulnerable and a panic test with a panic token. And I want this unit dead right here. And if I get it, or dead, weakened here, and then dead when the knights charge. And if I get it, I might be able to surge forth back out of range of his crossbows and be able to dictate a little bit more of the game, because then I go up 5-1. And I'm kind of in the driver's seat there. So he takes 4 hits and has to take them all, so he still has the vulnerable on him. And then this panic test he passes, and even after I spend the panic token, he still passes. So he has 8 wounds left here on his Othel conscripts, but he doesn't have hardened. So at this point, I go ahead and I activate the knights, and they also got their Lannister pays his debts because the flayed men died. So now they're hitting on 2s with vicious. So they're not hitting on 2s. They have vicious now. So we got the charge coming in. Was that a 1? I can't remember.
It's a 2, I believe.
Okay. So I have the 6 dice rolling with 2 automatic hits, and I'm hoping to just wipe him out here. I don't want to leave it to fate. He's got a vulnerable token. He should die here. He absolutely should die here when he takes 8 hits with a vulnerable token on conscripts on 6s. So
Oh, and I'm sweating bullets here. I'm sweating bullets.
so he takes 7 and he rerolls a 6 and rolls another 6. So he only takes 7 wounds. And right
Oh
here,
God.
he plays Shields Around Some Men. I'm not, no Shields Around Some Men. You do not get rerolls here. I get counterplots, so no rerolls from Shields, and you don't get the auto block. So now he's got to take his panic check, and he passes. And right there, zoom in. That's right where my soul dies. Because Othel's still alive. And now my knights have activated and they're in combat, and I'm realizing, okay, this bet that I just made right here is gonna come up craps on me, because now he's got this other unit of conscripts to act as a battery to heal these guys back up. My knights are locked in engagement, and I'm screwed at this point. I mean, not necessarily. The game's not over, but my little gambit here of popping Tywin and trying to kill Othel, it's not working.
You truly did bet the house here.
Yes.
And
It
then
should have
now
worked.
we see the power of Night's Watch with all the healing. So we see supply aid healing them up 4, and then Peter taking the swords but utilizing the bags to bring them back up to 6, which is pretty insane considering all that investment to kill Othel. I was amazed when I saw this play. I was like, how is this possible?
It's because Adam Lovell, the VP of Simon Sales over there, came over to see what was going on and check out the match. And every time Adam and Robert had walked over throughout this entire event, my dice decided to show off. So yeah, probably if they hadn't walked over there, I think Cyrus, closes the game out right there. But I don't think you've got Adam's face, but he was in complete disbelief as well when that panic test popped a double 6. He kind of just shook his head.
It's vicious into conscripts. Why are they passing?
Yep. Oh God, yeah. And I was actually glad that I didn't have that panic token on them anymore, because I didn't have a fire that burns to try to bail me out there. And I was really banking on that Shield of the Realms of Men, and I'm just like, well, I hope he doesn't have counterplot or Flayedman has no secrets, because this can go south really, really quickly. And it went south, but 3 6s in a row. I don't know
Hey,
what else to say.
Look, I'm tied up, and now I have conscript shooting into my flank. This is great.
Yep, and you're still in the lead, and I'm now realizing that my dreams of taking that center objective just are not going to happen. So I've had to completely.
So I placed the 2 forests. You placed that stakes on the center objective, and that set you up for failure here.
It's the general rule, or like I always say, it's the terrain that you place that screws you over the most, always.
Yep.
I'm able to intrigue Jor here and keep him from getting more of the cards that you want.
Yep, it's serrated. I'm most definitely fishing for serrated at this point. I'm begging for a serrated to help me get through these guys, because I know every time I shoot into the knights at this moment, unless I retreat Othel, which I think I end up doing, Othel's taking a panic test, and that's just making your job that much easier. So I'm wanting serrated to get through these knights and mitigate some of that Lannister supremacy if I can knock them down to their last rank with a shot.
Oh, do we see it? Okay, we saw a charge here, but it's disorderly into the flank of the flayed men. They're unfortunate.
I'm trying to tie up the flayed men here to keep the flayed men from getting over there and maybe going after Roose or going after the knights. So the guardsmen aren't doing a whole lot here. So I'm just trying to get them to do something useful. And I think he saved all of his saves in the flank charge. So no damage.
The guardsmen are actually doing a lot, though, because that's what guardsmen do. If you can engage one of their hitters, especially something like Flayedman that generally just has a vanilla non-sundering attack, if you're if you're the player who's being charged by the guardsmen, you've got to really start to think about whether you want to attack them or not, because that Lannister supremacy is so nasty. And
Yeah.
with my Flademan only having 4 attack dice, it seemed like nearly a suicide mission to even turn around and attack those guys.
That's the first Flademan has no secrets. I'm able to block the Watch Captain Relentless to prevent a shot, which helps keep the knights alive right now.
And it's like Chris said, that is such a good card. Roos plays so well into Lannisters because they have the token machine of Pycelle, but they've also got, so many abilities to put out tokens. If you've got Pycelle paired with Champions of the Faith, they can just hand out all 3 tokens like it's a no thing. And Roos can definitely take advantage of that. But I really like the setup that you have here.
Both of you seems like you're discussing something here, but maybe Cyrus, what are you thinking right now is sort of your ways out, or maybe like just to maybe bring activations back in your favor, or uh, I don't know what your state of mind is, but maybe just walk us through what your game plan is moving forward now that you lost your flayed man.
So this is where Roos being out of the game for the first 3 or 4 rounds is really biting me, because he's still over here on that objective token. He's out of it, and I can't do anything with the knights. He just retreated his flayed men, which now I see. Okay, maybe next round I might be able to get a long charge on the crossbows with my guardsmen. But Brett obviously anticipated that as well, and he had a game plan for that next round. So I'm in some trouble, and my options are starting to become pretty limited here. I can't, like I said, I can't do much with the knights. So now I'm just gonna try to get Roos into the game. I think this is a point in time where I was like, okay, it's time for Roos to get in here and start doing something. So I'm gonna march him up, and if the knights die, then I have kind of my 2 guards closing in from both flanks, and maybe I can try to do something, especially if he starts shooting into Roos with his crossbows. Roos and the guardsmen, they're pretty scary once you start getting tangled up with them. So that's really what I'm hoping for after the failed gamble of the charge into the conscripts.
Gotcha. And Brett opting not to charge into the knights, I think that's a pretty smart play. You don't want Lannister supremacy coming down on your conscripts. You just decide to maneuver. I can't tell if if you did that to be in the flank, but
No, I don't think I really had much interest in charging. I'm more or less trying to make room so that Othel can retreat, because
Yeah.
I was expecting to shoot into those knights, and I didn't want to take panic tests. So I think what I do is retreat Othel, and I pull him back just an inch away so that Cyrus can't pivot
Yeah.
properly to.
Then I realized that I'm like, okay, well now I pivot. Wait, no, I can't, because there's no way to properly pivot without moving through an enemy piece. So yeah, I'm still facing my flank towards the crossbows, and I'm I'm feeling it now. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, it's a dirty, little bit of a dirty veteran trick there, is to retreat them an inch away so that they don't have the option to pivot, because the tray's a little bit deeper, so you'd be within an inch if you were to try to pivot to give me your front. So
Mhm.
definitely not the nicest play to do, but it's what I had to do because I didn't want to be taking those panic tests with Othel every time I shot in. Not only with them having, just a 7 morale, but the +1 wound on failure too starts to become a big problem with the conscripts. They're a real liability. You definitely don't want them engaged when you're taking shots into combat.
all right. So Brett, you are now deciding to shoot into the flank of the knights, and probably also because you delayed that activation to get your conscript unit disengaged, so you're not taking the panic check. Um, so you're not afraid of taking Lannister supremacy back here.
No, I mean I don't want to, but at least from the knights, it's a -2 at max. But at the same time, I don't have a choice at this point, because if I don't play aggressively and start getting after these units, I'm going to get smoked, because they're capable of bringing those conscripts down. And at the point, if he kills both conscripts and I'm just relying on the flayedman and the watch captain, he's definitely got ways to just basically tie me up and then just play the missions the rest of the way and win, because I'm down in points at this point.
Makes sense. So, do we actually see a fail from a panic check here? Yeah, but
I
just
believe
one
so.
wound.
Right. And I think he has all of his goodies on those crossbows. He's got Corrin, he's got honed enhancement, he's throwing all kinds of dice and hitting on twos. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I do send that Lannister Supremacy back. It's only a -1. It was close to a fail, but he passes.
Yeah, at that point, those crossbows are shooting 9 dice on twos, and it's just utterly insane and just so brutal every single shot.
And
All right, so end of round 3 here.
Brett goes first here.
Yeah. So Brett, you are playing the center objective, score from controlling center objective, and then Cyrus is playing the mission that says when one of your combat units is killed by an enemy combat unit, you place 2 victory points on them, and when you kill them, you get those points.
That's a bit of a Hail Mary there, because I know that those knights are going to die, and if it's the crossbows that kill them, then if the crossbows start shooting into either of the guardsmen, they're risking a hefty Lannister supremacy back, which could make him think twice about shooting, which at this point in time, I just want him to think twice about shooting me.
Yeah. Which I am. I really don't want to shoot into it. I don't like taking a bunch of panic tests with additional wounds. Even at a morale 5, the crossbows definitely can fail when you get a -3 in the mix. And then with Hear Me Roar, which I don't believe you've played at all this game, it can start to become a pretty reliably failable
Yeah, I don't
panic
think I
test.
drew my Hear Me Roars until late in the game, unfortunately. I had the really good opening, but then I struggled to get those into my hand.
We're seeing Brett at the start of his turn. Before he does anything, he is using the supply aid order on the naked conscripts to heal Otho back up, and then now we're seeing the attack from the tactics board with Peter taking the bags but utilizing the swords.
And you saw whispered threats come down there.
Yeah,
They're claiming
I'm
the
not sure
zone.
if I zoned out or what, but you had already claimed the zone that you wanted, and I tried. Either we missed it or we hammered through the trigger for me to get whispered threats out and get some more tokens out. And
Oh yeah,
the knights just died.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's let's see, it's going to be 8 on twos. I don't have Corrin down, so
Yeah.
but it's still, yeah, that's a lot. But as far as the trigger and playing that card goes, that's just one of those moments where you just let your opponent do it, even if you're in a tournament game. It's not really my style to say like, oh well, you missed your window. Like, I knew I was going to claim the zone even if you'd played it. Like, I had to at this point. So that
So
brings
now,
the
Brett,
score.
we see your big play where you're sacrificing Corrin to shut off his guardsmen.
Yep.
Yep, and the most horrible thing about that is, as that card is worded right now, a unit is destroyed because Corrin is destroying himself. So I use that to trigger Watches Ended on my crossbow so that they can turn around and face those guardsmen with the free maneuver.
Yeah, we're seeing that here. So you will opt to use the maneuver to about face, but that was a pretty big gamble with Cyrus only having played one Flayed Man Has No Secrets, because you can stop that, can't you?
You can.
You can.
Oof.
Yep, it was a gamble.
And I'm pretty sure the way that that's worded is Corrin has to die first before he targets a unit. So Corrin dies. If you Flayed Man Has No Secrets, that cancels the rest of the card, but Corrin is still dead, if I understand it right.
Yep. That is what it does.
Yep.
It was a risk.
Okay, now we're seeing the whisper threats tokens coming out here.
Mm. So my poor guardsmen there can do absolutely nothing, and they have crossbows staring them in the face, and as well as the flayed men nearby.
The flayed men. Yep,
So
the
what could
flayed
you be
men.
fishing for here, Cyrus, by taking the letters?
Give me a second here because my stream just decided to stop on me. Uh, I took the letters to try to put out some more tokens and maybe try to get that other flayed men has no secrets to try to prevent some of these shots.
Makes sense. So yeah, we're seeing Brett taking the swords here for another shot into not another shot, but a shot into your guardsmen that are shut off.
Yeah, they're shut off, but they can still supremacy me.
Stripping a rank.
Did get the rank down, but it's a supremacy -2. And then he had rolled that, but I was trying to get that hear me roar out to get an additional wound out. And then he's trying to re-roll him. There, I pulled the flayed man has no secrets, so I'm able to prevent that re-roll of his panic test. So he has to take the panic.
Yeah, so that's the maximum amount you can take from Lannister supremacy with only having 2 ranks on your guardsmen. So
Yep.
what, a total of 6?
And there's the
Yep.
fealty.
And
So
it
Oh, it's
starts.
like 5 wounds.
yeah.
Sorry.
So now he has seen the power of Lannister supremacy. He has gone to half of his crossbows here, and because of fealty, I was able to heal the guardsmen back up. So that was the absolute best case scenario for me, is to get him to start thinking twice about shooting into these guards.
Yeah, especially if they since they now have they're now worth 3 points with the objective.
Yep.
Yep, it's a pretty scary moment. I mean, I know the power of supremacy, particularly coming from guard. It was I was hoping to avoid really having to hammer down on those guys too badly. I had the fire that burns in hand. I was like, felt okay about passing on that 7, and then the hear me roar comes down, and the flayedman has no secrets. So yeah, I think it traumatized me a little bit from that point, and I'm really just wanting to get rid of these guardsmen and then not attack Roos at all if I can. Is my game plan at this point.
So we're seeing another supply aid here, and are you opting to attack again? Yeah, we're seeing another attack here.
Yeah, with the order gone from Lannister supremacy, it's a little bit less scary to shoot into them, of course, because with it being an order now, he spent it for the round. So I've spent my 6-point NCU to get this unit, get rid of them. So I've I've got to follow through with that and really get them off the table and get the point.
I'm just seeing how long of a long bomb charge do I need to just try to make something happen here, because the writing's on the wall for me at this point that those guardsmen are in trouble. I gotta get Roos in the game here. And Roos tangling with a pair of conscripts, you actually kind of like that matchup because he has spread fear and intimidating presence. You have supremacy. It's a lot of bad panic stuff for his 2 conscripts here. So I think I'd try do. Oh no, I think I move him up and then try a charge later.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a nightmare matchup for 2 units of conscripts because it's the panic damage from intimidating presence that really starts to add up. So you
Mhm.
can you can say the guardsmen don't do a lot of damage, but if they're fighting units like raiders or conscripts, they'll do plenty of damage just by doing chip damage. Then by causing that failed panic test and then using spread fear onto the nearby enemy, which is essentially exactly what you do, and it's really, really punishing. And then at that point, when your opponent wants to, strike back to try to stop some of the madness, then you start triggering supremacy, and they can just literally kill themselves. So generally, Roos is like a no-go. You don't even really want to mess with this unit of guardsmen, really, no matter what you have. I don't even think morale 5 is necessarily safe.
I think you shifted up to try to create some distance between yourself and Roos here. Was that the idea of moving up closer to the guardsmen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And here's my hot dice again. I'm taking, what was that, 7 shots, and I saved 2 of them still. So I'm still trying to hold on with these hot dice and passing panic checks and all that good stuff.
So Brett, I
Yeah.
would think that right now, even though the score is tied, you may want to keep it that way for this round. I don't know if you considered that if you were to score a point here by killing that unit, that Cyrus would most likely be playing the card that gives him first player and gaining him a victory point. Or do you
Yeah,
even care? Do you even care at this point?
the thought came to my mind, but I think at this point my biggest goal is to get rid of the guardsmen, leave it to just Roos, and then I open myself up to options where I can either finish out by playing missions and try to win the game that way, or if I
Mm.
absolutely have to, I can turn the crossbows and the flayedmen onto Roos and deal with that unit if I have to, hoping that he fails some panic tests and things of this nature. I really don't want to mess with that unit because of supremacy, but I feel like I'm giving myself the best options by getting rid of the guard because I don't want to be in a spot where the guard charge my crossbows and tie me up, and then they start taking options away from me.
Makes sense. So now we're seeing 4 hits going into your conscripts with Othel, the charge with Roos, and you are taking just 1 wound because you have shields and hardened, which is pretty nasty.
Critical
Yeah,
fail on that panic check, though.
That's where it's at, though. That's what you need.
yep. And that's where that's the again, the meat and potatoes of that unit is the panic tests, and as we get later into the game and hardened and the shield starts to come to mind, you and I both realize the power because we're both saying, you just need to get one through, just one. That's all it takes to
Mm-hmm.
start this chain of conscript death because these guys now are starting to just die in waves to this unit. So um, obviously with the crit fail panic taking 4 wounds and then spread fear being a thing as well, and it looks like
You
that's the
you took was it 5 because of intimidating presence as well. So you had the additional
right.
wound from conscripts and intimidating presence. So you took a total of 5 wounds.
Yep.
Oof.
And just a PSA for the Lannister players with that really simple combo there. If you've got Joffrey NCU and a Hear Me Roar added to that combination, the Raiders or the conscripts would be taking 7 wounds from that one failed panic check. Really, really nasty.
Doesn't that
Which I'm
actually
sure.
does that boost it to? Oh yeah, that's 7. I was thinking it was 8 for a second.
Well, yeah, if you work supremacy into the mix, they can actually take 10.
Mm.
Really, it's funny. That's all you can do is laugh. But any unit, even a unit that's not, conscripts and raiders could still take up to 9. Of course, that's like the dream combo, but it could happen. The Lannister panic damage is nasty. It's weird that I'm just now seeing guardsmen kind of make their way into the meta. Obviously, you ran them, you've believed in them from the get go, but I hadn't seen them a whole lot. But now I'm even seeing Larks, the renowned German player, is running 2 to 3. Well, I'll say 1 to 3 unit of guard now, just because there's such a no go unit for attacking. It's a really nice piece to add some board control and some element of control in which you make your opponent not even want to mess with that unit. So it
It's
gives you a
been
lot of
hard.
options.
It's been hard for me to not bring them. Like the Lannisters have a lot of units that you want to bring, but I just love the Guardsmen so much.
I gotta admit,
Yeah, I
if they
mean,
looked cooler, if they were better models, I would definitely run them more often. But I'm, I believe in the rule of cool, and man, they just don't look great to me. But respect to anyone that does play them, because I understand the strength of them. I played you Cyrus twice over the weekend, and
Yeah.
yeah, I understand the sheer just devastating panic checks they can push out. So
yep, and their morale's a 7, so it's a little bit of a liability. But if you run a commander like the High Sparrow to bump that morale up to a 6, they're then a tank, but their retribution damage is really just unmatched from any unit in the game. So they've definitely got, for me, they've got their name in the hat for the best 5-point unit, um, in my opinion. Of
So
course,
here at this round, I'm not sure why I played the center objective one instead of the gain a victory point for if you're behind and become first player, or did I? I'm not sure. No, because I was already going to be first player. I think this was the beginning
you're
of
already
round
first
5.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did a mistake here. Instead of trying to attack into hardened with guardsmen who, for all their strengths, have a very, very weak attack profile, I should have gone for the crown and try to crown them down and try to use intimidating presence to my advantage and try to get them to fail to panic. So this was a total goof on me going for the swords, which is normally what you would do when you're engaged with someone. And then I realized my mistake after the fact when he has already used his healing and supply aid to try to heal these conscripts up. So that was a total goof on my part.
yeah, I think the crown play would have been the most scary for me. Yeah, Othel at a -2, taking the D3+1 from intimidating presence, and then spreading fear into those other conscripts, and probably just getting uh, at least 1 point out of that exchange, but potentially 2.
Yeah.
And then you could wiggle your way over to that center objective if you really wanted to.
And because you supplied aid, you weakened that other unit of conscripts, and they ended up dying to spread fear.
Hmm.
So that got me that point there.
And
Yep.
earlier in the round, you'll notice that Brett scored a point. It's because Brett, you played the if your opponent claims a zone before you do, you score a point. So when Cyrus took the swords, you were able to get a point for that. So now it's 5-3.
Yep. And I think at this point, I'm just trying to kind of mitigate any damage, and now I'm kind of at the point where I'm okay with pulling stuff back and away, and just playing a little bit of a defensive game here and not messing with Roos.
You say
Because
that, yet you move closer to him and face him.
I'm not attacking them. I think I'm trying to keep him from getting to that center objective.
So you're retreating here, Cyrus.
Yeah, at this point in time, I'm got the conscripts here and the crossbows in my flank. I'm starting to I don't want him to get 9 shots into the flank of the guardsmen. It's too much for even them to handle. I'm pretty sure my dice, the luck on my dice are going to run out soon. So instead of taking that flank shot, I retreat and try to turn to face, and then I think it was later in round 6 when I decide that I've exhausted all of my winning strategies, and the only thing that could happen at that point is I would be tabled. So this is more of a defensive move, trying to prevent myself from being tabled.
Gotcha.
Yep, and I think I'm pretty much closing off that center objective. I debated taking it, but the consequence of taking those wounds, and then if I have to, get a shot off or something, taking a wound every time I shoot is bad business. But well, I guess I'm an idiot. I think we had a conversation, and I said something like, "We came here to play, so we're gonna play," right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really didn't want to shoot you, but I think I think I decided because this is U.S. Nationals and we're here to play. I went ahead and took the shot, and look, you took what, 2 wounds from that?
Yeah, again, the hot dice come back, and that was a failure with a -3. So you took another huge supremacy hit.
Yep.
And I
Yeah,
have
was it worth it, Brett?
No.
I'm
Like-
not sure I get that supremacy if I let you shoot me in the flank, though. I'm pretty sure I lose at least 1 rank, if not more. So
Yeah. Yeah. So that just kind of botched any consideration I had given to taking the center token anyway. I'm probably just kicking myself right now. Like, why did I do that? Why even shoot into them?
So this is the Harden coming to get me again because yeah, I own the crown, so I'm hitting on 3s with vicious, but he's auto blocking. Was at 4?
Yep.
So I just gotta hope to get that one wound through.
Yeah, that combination there with awful and such a, it's basically a chaff unit in the conscripts, but being able to block all of those hits is just crazy.
Yep. So you would have taken a few wounds there, but since you auto blocked 4 and then had a 5 left over, nothing happened.
Yep.
I think you're supplying aid here, yeah, to heal the crossbows back up to prevent them from being sniped in the next round somehow.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
would see the play next round is if you swipe first player and gain a point, you would need to possibly zap Othel. You would die from the panic check, then spread fear with a hear me roar.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I believe with the supply aid order there that Brett just did, he sort of took that plan away from you.
Yep.
Yep, because it could have been, because the spread fear is D3+1, so it could have ended up being a dead unit of crossbows as well.
Spread fear is actually however many ranks are in the unit that's spreading the fear. So it would have been the wounds, yeah, but
Yeah, the wounds are
the
D3+1.
minuses, you're counting on those additional minuses to help. But now I have less minuses because I'm taking more wounds.
Yeah, and I'm shooting into it knowing that a panic test is coming
Yeah,
on Othel.
could have been bad,
I don't love it.
but you passed.
I think I'm
The
starting
flayed
to
men
sweat.
are still out there where they used to be.
Yep, they've been bribed, and I'm not entirely sure what to do with them. You know, in hindsight, looking back at it, I should have sent the flayed men just to go sit on that center objective. Even if they took the wounds initially, I think you had other things to worry about. I could have
Yeah,
just
you wouldn't have minded that much.
nope. I could have just put the flayed men there and let Roos come into the flayed men if that's what he wanted to do. But I think he had other priorities to take care of. So
Yep. So going
that
into this
probably.
last round here, round 5, we have the Brett's playing the when an enemy NCU claims the swords or horse, score 1 point, and then Cyrus, as we discussed before, is playing the score and victory point and steal first player if your opponent has more points than you. So
Mhm.
5-4. That score is very close.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It is, and if you consider the play on Othel, it tells you just how behind the 8 ball I really could have been if that play had gone off, because that was 3 points that he didn't get that round, and so it could have been a totally different game. And in a perfect world, I could have been forced to attack the Roos Guardsmen, and it could have led to all that supremacy and all the nastiness. Cyrus was definitely in a position to kind of take over the game with that big Tywin play, but it's just crazy.
The dice gods were not with me on that. They blessed me. They blessed me with all of these great saves, but they also blessed Brett with his re-roll of double sixes and then boxcars on the panic test.
Yeah, the moment when Adam Lavelle just kind of walked away from the table after he saw the boxcar panic test and then he saw the healing train start, he was just like, "Oh no!"
Oh no!
He just kind
Oh,
of walked away.
trust me. I was like, "Oh no," too. I think I was saying much more words than "Oh no."
Yeah, totally
I'm just glad that I
understandable.
got it on camera
Yep.
because Brett, you're infamous for having those type of dice rolls in competitive matches, and people can say what they want, but I mean it's proven. You've got dice juju. You
I
believe in
do.
dice juju. I don't know what you do to your dice, but they work for you. So keep on doing it.
Yeah, and I don't know if people were paying attention and you guys throughout the match, but I switch those dice so often, and it's I think I've explained it to you before. If they roll badly, they can get put to the sideline, but also if I have a set of dice that rolls really well, they kind of get set off to the side and another set swapped in because it's weird, but I definitely like have juju with the dice, and I think they only get so many good rolls and things like this. So I swap them constantly, and that's why I've got that big bag. It's got like 4 different dice sets in it, and I rotate them in and out.
I
But
think
yeah,
maybe you guys at this point are just discussing what the game plan could be. I think Cyrus, you opt to maybe retreat here.
Yeah, my win conditions are all exhausted, and at this point, I could hang in and try for more Hail Marys, but I don't think it's going to work, especially trying to get through the conscript, and I still have those crossbows to contend with. So instead of running the risk of getting tabled here, I just tell Brett, it's like, I'm going to retreat here, and then I'm out here, and maybe he could chase me down, maybe not, but he's winning, so we're probably just
yeah,
gonna call it.
yeah. I think we kind of just went over the potential things that could happen, the scores. Uh, he didn't have really enough attack dice at that point to get past the hardened, so it was kind of like, well, we can do a couple of things and see how it goes. But at this point, I was pretty happy just to take a 6-4 or even a 6-5 if he managed to kill Othel. So I just wasn't going to, at that point, I wasn't going to even take the risk of trying to table him and shoot into those guard again for any shenanigans. And I was just happy to take the the 6-4 is what it ended up being.
I mean, it was quite the match.
It
I
was
I
it was a great
enjoyed
match. It was a great
Yeah, I
match.
enjoyed watching it. That was insane, and I feel for you, Cyrus. Brett, you're a good friend of mine. I'm sorry, but Cyrus, I wanted to see this unique Lannister list take out, the top dog, Night's Watch, at this tournament, and
Uh,
it really did come down to a dice roll. A few actually, uh, a few crazy ones,
mm.
but I mean that's just the way this game can be, you know.
Yeah, I brought the list for that purpose of playing into Night's Watch, and Chris, you also brought some Night's Watch, and we had that close game in round two.
Yeah.
But I was in this setup. If I had run into double crossbows like I was anticipating, this list would have really done some work for me. But Brett, being a brilliant player that he is and a strategist, throwing in those flayed men kind of wrecked my initial plans, and then I had to adapt from there. And I missed on that one gambit in round three.
Yeah,
Yep.
so what I would like to say for those who have watched this video, and if you're struggling with your local meta, if there's someone that is running just the nasty double crossbow list, give Cyrus's list a try. Um, run this list, let us know how it goes, and yeah, I mean, I love seeing creativity on the table, and this is what we saw here today. Um, one thing I would like to pose to both of you, maybe we can start with Brett. The winner is. Um, what are some takeaways from this match?
Um, hmm. There's quite a few. I think that Cyrus is, he's kind of proof that tinkering around with lists, even if they're not what the quote unquote meta says is the strongest, just tinkering around with some of the tools that you have at your disposal and figuring out combinations that work for you. Like he's running Knights of Castle Rock, and the meta says that he should be running two Flayed Men, but he ran the Knights, and I think they were a really, really solid addition. And I think it's things like that. You've just got to figure out what works for you and what makes sense to you, and you build around how you like to play. And the pieces that are inserted into the list are what you have inserted. I think you play around with something and then you fill in the gaps for yourself. So I think the biggest takeaway is if it works for you, it doesn't really matter if it's considered meta or if it's considered one of the top lists. If it works for you, you have a purpose, you know how to run the list, then just go with it. Because I had run John the entire event going into this match with Cyrus, and I really wanted to run John again. But his tech pieces that he had, when I really got to looking at his list, I was like, the Sworn brothers potentially can be one-shotted, but the John Hunters, most definitely. If he pops Tywin and then sends Flayed Men or the Knights into them after all the Tywin stuff, I mean, it's really easy to one-shot those units. And I know in particular Night's Watch is scary, but Tywin is such a great tool for dealing with those 5+ defense, Night's Watch heavy hitters. The hits, the panic token, the panic test, the vulnerable token, you're setting them up for a one shot, and that's a huge loss for a Night's Watch player. So I applaud Cyrus for following through with playing that list and taking it as far as he did. And realistically, everybody who watches it knows he really, 98 out of 100 times should probably win that match because Othel should die.
All right, Cyrus. So I'm going to pose the same question to you. Is what's your takeaways from this match?
So my takeaways to start with is I was in a very, very privileged position to be even at top table. I am not. I don't play a lot of games, and I don't think I've played in a major tournament before. I play a lot of local tournaments, but really, what helped me get there was the list building and being able to put that list together. Because everything in the game, everything without exception, has a counter. I don't want to hear Night's Watch. They're unbeatable. There's no counter to Night's Watch. There is, and there's a counter to Dragons. There's not very many, and those counters that you run can leave you exposed to other things. But it is absolutely possible to counter things, and that's why I built the list that I did to try to be the counter to Night's Watch. And if I had faced, like I said, a more traditional meta Night's Watch list, I think I would have had a better shot. And for other players out there, it doesn't even have to be 2 crossbows. If it's a crossbow with the watch captain and 3 other infantry units, this particular list is great into that. But like we said, Brett running the counter to the counter and teching in that Flayedman piece through my game plan into a bit of a disarray. So for me, I was very, very happy with the way I finished, even though that game was disappointing. Ending 3-1 and finishing 4th place for me at Nationals was just an absolute privilege and an honor, because all the games that I played prior to that were super close and could have swung either way. So I was very happy with how I finished and how it went. And congratulations to Brett. He's absolutely brilliant, and he was a great opponent.
Awesome. And thank you to both of you for taking the time to commentate throughout this match for me. I hope people are able to learn from this, be entertained by it, laugh at some of the dice rolls, and really get a glimpse at what competitive A Song of Ice and Fire can be. I look forward to recording more competitive matches, but I'm also looking forward to getting back to some of the more fun battle reports that the channel is known for. So I believe the next major tournament is going to be LVO. Are either of you going to be there?
I'll be there.
I don't know if I'll be able to make it. I have some life events coming up here soon. I do have a child due here this month.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations, dude.
I appreciate that. So with that and other considerations, there's a high likelihood that I will not be able to make it, but if I can, I will absolutely be there.
Awesome. Well, either way, I'm super psyched for you for your child, but if you can be there, that's all the better too. Just bring the kid.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Bring the kid to Vegas. What could go wrong? I've seen The Hangover. I know how this works.
Well, all right, fellas. This was a pleasure to be able to do this with both of you. Thanks again, and we'll see everyone next time. Holy shit. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. So if you like this content, please consider supporting me through Patreon. You can find that link in the description below, or at the very least, just hit that subscribe button or like the video. If not for me, at least do it for Rosie. Say bye, Rosie. Oh.